The chrome on the '67 Mustang gleamed like liquid mercury under the afternoon sun, and I was adjusting the carburetor when I heard my wife's laugh cut through the crowd at the vintage car show. Sharp, performative. The kind of laugh that says, "Look at me," not "I'm genuinely amused." I'd been restoring classic cars for 15 years, building my business from a single-bay garage to a full restoration shop with 6 employees and a waiting list that stretched 18 months. This car show was my pride. Local businesses sponsored it, collectors came from 3 states over, and I'd organized the whole damn thing. But Amanda had made it clear she was here for the social opportunity, not to support me. I wiped my hands on a rag and glanced over at her. She was holding court near the refreshment tent with her usual crew. Bethany, who married a plastic surgeon and never let anyone forget it. Monica, whose husband owned a chain of urgent care clinics. And Diane, the real estate agent who'd somehow convinced herself that selling houses made her better than people who actually built things. Amanda was wearing the dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last month. $400 at some boutique downtown. She'd complained it wasn't designer. "I'm just being honest," Amanda said, her voice carrying across the display area. She had that particular tone, the one she used when she wanted to sound worldly and sophisticated. "This marriage won't survive another year. He's beneath my standards." The words hit me like a wrench to the gut. Bethany gasped theatrically. "Amanda, you can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. I mean, look at him." Amanda gestured vaguely in my direction without actually looking at me. "He plays with old cars all day. Gets his hands dirty. We live in a decent house, sure, but it's not the lifestyle I signed up for. My mother warned me, you know. She said, 'Don't marry a mechanic, even if he calls himself a restoration specialist.'" They all laughed. Actually laughed. Monica leaned in, probably thinking she was being discreet. "So what are you going to do?" "I'm working on it," Amanda said. "I've been talking to Preston Whitmore, you know, the attorney who handled Diane's divorce. He says I could get half of everything, including the business. Maybe I'll finally be able to afford a real life." My hands had stopped moving. The rag hung limp in my grip. 16 years. We'd been married 16 years. I'd met Amanda when I was 26, working out of my father's garage, dreaming of something bigger. She was a paralegal at a small firm downtown, pretty and ambitious and completely uninterested in cars. That hadn't mattered then. She'd laughed at my jokes, kissed me like she meant it, told me she believed in me, we'd built a life together. Or I thought we had. I'd worked 80-hour weeks to grow the business, missed dinners, anniversaries, vacations, all so we could have more. The house she complained about? I'd bought it outright 5 years ago. The BMW she drove, paid in cash, the weekly spa appointments and shopping trips and girls' weekends in wine country, all funded by the guy who plays with old cars all day. But I was beneath her standards. I set down my tools and walked over to the group. My boots crunched on the gravel, but Amanda still didn't notice me until I was standing right there, 5 feet away. "Jake," Bethany said brightly, her face flushing. "We were just—" "I heard what you were just doing," I said calmly. I looked at Amanda. Really looked at her. Saw the momentary flash of panic in her eyes before her expression hardened into defiance. "How long have you been standing there?" she asked. "Long enough?" I smiled. Not a happy smile. Just the facial arrangement that passes for one. "You said this marriage won't survive another year, that I'm beneath your standards." "Jake, I was just venting to my friends. No, I think you were being honest. Maybe for the first time in a long time." I glanced at her friends, who suddenly found their shoes fascinating. "You know what? You're right. Why wait? Let's call it quits right now." Amanda's eyes widened. "What?" "You heard me. You want a divorce? You got one. I'll have my attorney draw up the papers this week." "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious." I threw her words back at her. 16 years, Amanda. 16 years I've worked my ass off to give you the life you wanted. And the whole time, apparently, you've been ashamed of me." "I didn't say I was ashamed. You said I'm beneath your standards. Same difference." I turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and that attorney you've been talking to? Preston Whitmore? He's my attorney too. Has been for 8 years. Business contracts, property deals, all of it. You might want to find someone else." I walked away before she could respond. The rest of the car show passed in a blur. I smiled when people complimented the Mustang, answered questions about restoration techniques, shook hands with potential clients. The whole time, my brain was running calculations, assets, accounts, properties. Amanda found me 2 hours later as I was loading tools into my truck. "We need to talk," she said. "Nothing to talk about. You made yourself clear." I was angry. "You've been distant lately, wrapped up in your work." "I've always been wrapped up in my work. That's how I built the business that funds your lifestyle." Her jaw tightened. "See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You throw money in my face like it's supposed to make up for never being around. I'm around plenty. You're just never satisfied with what I provide." I closed the truck bed. "Go home, Amanda. I'll sleep at the shop tonight. We can figure out the details tomorrow." "Jake, I'm done. Really, genuinely done. You don't get to humiliate me in public and then play the victim when I call you on it." I drove to my restoration shop, a converted warehouse on the industrial side of town. The building was mine, bought and paid for 3 years ago. Inside, 4 cars in various states of restoration sat in the bays like mechanical patients waiting for surgery. A 69 Camaro, a 55 Chevy pickup, a 71 Challenger, a 73 Corvette, each one worth 6 figures when finished. I'd built something here, something real and tangible, something that mattered. I pulled a beer from the mini-fridge in my office and sat at my desk, staring at the photos on the wall. Pictures of finished projects, happy clients, awards from car shows. Not a single photo of Amanda. When had that happened? My phone buzzed. Amanda, naturally. "We need to talk like adults." I didn't respond. She called 3 times. I sent each call to voicemail. Around 11 p.m., another message came through, but this one wasn't from Amanda. It was from Diane, Amanda's real estate agent friend, the one who'd been at the car show. The message was simple. "Jake, you need to see this." Attached was a screenshot of a text conversation between Amanda and someone named Kyle. My hands went cold as I read. Amanda. "He suspects nothing. Just played the dutiful wife at his stupid car show." Kyle. "When are you going to leave him?" Amanda. "After I get half the business appraised. Preston says it could be worth $2 to $3 million. I'll clean him out, then we can finally be together." Kyle. "I can't wait. I'm tired of sneaking around." Amanda. "Me too, baby. But it'll be worth it. Jake's too stupid to see what's happening right under his nose." The messages continued. Weeks of them. Months, maybe. I scrolled through the screenshots Diane had sent, each one worse than the last. Plans, strategies, intimate details I didn't want to know. The last screenshot was from earlier today, sent right after I'd left the car show. Amanda. "He actually called my bluff. Said he wants a divorce." Kyle. "Is that bad?" Amanda. "No, it's perfect. Means he's emotional, not thinking clearly. Preston says emotional divorces always favor the wife. I'll take him for everything." I set down my phone and stared at the wall. 16 years. The beer tasted like ashes in my mouth. My phone buzzed again. Diane. "I'm sorry you had to see that, but you deserve to know." I typed back, "Why are you showing me this?" The response came quickly. "Because Amanda's my friend, but what she's doing is wrong, and because Kyle is my ex-husband, the one who cheated on me 3 years ago. She knew that when she started sleeping with him. Some things matter more than friendship." I sat there in my office, surrounded by the mechanical corpses of cars waiting to be reborn, and started making plans of my own. I didn't go home that night, or the next. Amanda called 17 times over 2 days. Left voicemails that progressed from angry to conciliatory to desperate. I didn't listen to any of them past the first 5 seconds. Instead, I sat in my office and did research. Preston Whitmore had represented me for 8 years, handling everything from business contracts to property acquisitions. He'd helped me structure my LLC, negotiate lease agreements with clients, and draft employment contracts for my staff. He knew every detail of my financial life, and he'd been talking to my wife about divorcing me. That was an ethics violation, a big one. Monday morning, I called the Virginia State Bar Association and filed a formal complaint. Then I called a different attorney, Marcus Hayes, who specialized in high-conflict divorces and had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless. "Tell me everything," he said when I walked into his office at 9 a.m. I showed him the screenshots, explained the situation, handed over financial documents I'd printed from my files at the shop. Hayes was in his 50s, gray at the temples, with the kind of weathered face that suggested he'd seen every variation of human ugliness the law could produce. He read through everything twice, making notes on a yellow legal pad. "How long have you known about the affair?" he asked. 72 hours. "And your business is worth how much?" "Last appraisal was $2.8 million. That was for insurance purposes 6 months ago. Could be more now." "Property?" "House is paid off, titled jointly, worth about $600,000. The shop building is titled to my LLC, which I own 100%, worth about $800,000. "Other assets?" "Retirement accounts, about $400,000. Savings, another $200,000. Investment portfolio, roughly $300,000. Then there's equipment, tools, current inventory, probably another $500,000 in total. Hayes whistled low. You're looking at roughly $5 million in total marital assets, give or take. And she wants half. She'll ask for more than half. The affair doesn't matter much in Virginia. It's a no-fault state. But the fact that she's been planning this with your own attorney, that's leverage. He looked up from his notes. Does she work? Part-time, office manager at a dental practice, makes about $30,000 a year. So she'll claim she sacrificed her career for your marriage, supported you while you built the business, etc. She didn't sacrifice anything. She's worked the same job since before we got married. Meanwhile, I was pulling 100-hour weeks to build the restoration shop. Can you prove that? I've got tax returns, business records, time cards from before I was self-employed. I documented everything. Hayes smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. Good. Here's what we're going to do. He laid out the strategy over the next hour. File first, file fast. Request an immediate preliminary hearing based on the ethics violation with Preston Whitmore. Subpoena phone records to prove the affair. Demand a forensic accounting of all marital assets to prevent her from hiding anything. This is going to get ugly, Hayes warned. When people realize they're not getting what they expected, they get desperate. Is there anything, and I mean anything, she could use against you? I thought about it. No, I don't drink much. Never used drugs, no gambling, no affairs. I worked, came home, worked some more. That was my life. Good. Keep it that way. From this moment forward, you don't speak to her except through me. You don't return calls, texts, emails, nothing. You document everything. Every interaction, every communication, every threat. Understand? Understood. One more thing. Where are you staying? The shop. I've got a couch in my office, shower in the bathroom. Not anymore. Rent an apartment, somewhere clean, stable. We need to show you're establishing an independent household, not living like a vagrant in your place of business. I signed the retainer agreement and left. By noon, I'd rented a furnished one-bedroom apartment 3 miles from the shop. By 3 p.m., Hayes had filed the divorce petition and served Amanda at her workplace. She called 30 seconds after being served. I sent it to voicemail. She showed up at the shop an hour later. You can't do this. She was screaming before she even got out of her car. My employees, Danny, Frank, Luis, and Tommy, all stopped working to watch. You can't just throw away 16 years because of one stupid comment. I stood in the bay doorway, arms crossed. This conversation needs to happen through our attorneys. Our attorneys? You mean you actually hired someone to divorce me? You were planning to divorce me, Amanda. I just filed first. Her face went red. Those texts. Diane showed you, didn't she? That bitch? Those were private. Private conversations about how you were going to take me for everything I've built? About your affair with Kyle? She froze. Several of my employees suddenly found reasons to be very busy with their work. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. Kyle sends his regards. So does Diane. Amanda's expression crumbled. Not with sadness, with fury. Pure, incandescent rage. You self-righteous prick. You think you're so much better than me? You've ignored me for years. Years, Jake. All you care about are these stupid cars and this stupid business. These stupid cars paid for everything you own. I gave you the best years of my life. No, you gave me 16 years of increasingly obvious contempt while spending my money and planning to leave me. She took a step forward. Danny moved closer, just in case. Amanda saw him and stopped. I'll take you for everything, she hissed. The house, the business, all of it. You'll be bankrupt when I'm done. You're welcome to try. My attorney's number is on the papers you were served. Call him. I walked back into the shop and closed the bay door. She screamed something incoherent, got in her car, and peeled out of the parking lot. Frank, my senior technician, whistled low. Boss, that was intense. Yeah. She really doesn't know about the offshore account, does she? I glanced at him sharply. Frank had been with me since the beginning. He'd watched me build this business from nothing. He knew things. What offshore account? I said loudly, for the benefit of anyone listening. Frank grinned. Exactly. The truth was more complicated. 3 years ago, I'd sold a fully restored 67 Shelby GT500 to a collector in Dubai for $900,000. Cash deal. The buyer had wanted discretion, something about tax implications in his home country, and I'd been happy to oblige. The money had gone into an account in the Cayman Islands, managed by a wealth management firm that specialized in high-net-worth individuals who valued privacy. Amanda knew I'd sold the car. She didn't know how much I'd sold it for. I'd told her $200,000, and she'd been thrilled with that number. The other $700,000 had stayed offshore, growing quietly in conservative investments. It wasn't illegal. The IRS knew about it. I'd paid taxes on the income, but it wasn't in any account with both our names on it, and it wasn't titled to the LLC. It was mine, personally, held in a structure that was perfectly legal but complicated enough that most people wouldn't find it without extensive forensic accounting. And Amanda definitely couldn't afford extensive forensic accounting. Hayes had asked about hidden assets. I'd shown him documentation on the offshore account. He'd smiled that predatory smile again. Legally obtained, legally held, taxes paid. In a community property state, she'd have a claim. Virginia's an equitable distribution state. The judge has discretion. He'd leaned back in his chair. We'll disclose it if we have to, but I don't think we'll have to. That night, I lay on the couch in my new apartment and stared at the ceiling. The place was generic. Beige walls, basic furniture, the kind of temporary housing that felt like a hotel. But it was mine. Nobody was judging me here. Nobody was keeping score of my failures. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "This is Kyle. We should talk." I deleted it without responding. Another message came through 5 minutes later. "Amanda. Please, can we just talk? Really talk?" I blocked her number. The next morning, Hayes called. "Preston Whitmore has withdrawn from representing your wife. The ethics complaint scared him. Good. What's Amanda doing?" "She hired Rachel Simmons. You know her?" I didn't. "She's competent, but not exceptional. Handles mostly straightforward divorces. Your wife probably couldn't afford anyone better on short notice." He paused. "Discovery starts next week. Be prepared to turn over every financial document you have, and I mean everything. Already organized? Good. One more thing. Rachel's going to paint you as an absent workaholic who neglected his wife. She'll argue that your business success came at the cost of the marriage, and therefore your wife deserves compensation for her emotional suffering." "That's ridiculous." "That's divorce court. Start documenting your version. Write down every time you came home for dinner, every vacation you took together, every gift, every date night, every attempt at connection that she rebuffed. We need to show you tried." I spent the next week doing exactly that, going through old calendars, credit card statements, photos, building a timeline of our marriage that showed how I'd been present, engaged, trying, and how Amanda had been increasingly distant, critical, absent. The evidence was damning, for her, not me. Meanwhile, my business kept running. The '69 Camaro was finished, a stunning restoration that the client nearly cried over when he picked it up. He paid the remaining balance of $85,000 on the spot and immediately asked if I could restore his late father's Corvette. I took the deposit check and put it in the LLC account. Amanda didn't know about that account either. The preliminary hearing happened on a Tuesday morning in circuit court. Judge Patricia Morrison presiding, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd been on the bench for 20 years and had a reputation for seeing through bullshit. Amanda showed up wearing a conservative navy suit, minimal makeup, hair pulled back. The wronged wife costume. Rachel Simmons sat beside her, a woman in her 40s with a tight blonde bun and an expression that suggested she'd rather be anywhere else. Hayes and I sat at the other table. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than my truck, and he radiated the kind of quiet confidence that made people nervous. "Counsel," Judge Morrison said, looking at both attorneys, "this is a preliminary hearing to establish temporary orders. I've reviewed the filings. Ms. Simmons, your client is requesting temporary spousal support, exclusive use of the marital home, and a 50% stake in Mr. Turner's business. That about right?" "Yes, Your Honor," Rachel said, standing. "Mrs. Turner has been financially dependent on her husband throughout their marriage. She needs support while the divorce proceeds." "Mr. Hayes?" Hayes stood. "Your Honor, Mrs. Turner works full-time and has access to all joint accounts, which currently hold approximately $40,000. She's not in any immediate financial distress. As for the business, it's held in an LLC that Mr. Turner owns individually. It's not a marital asset subject to division." "The business was built during the marriage," Rachel countered. "Virginia law is clear that assets acquired during marriage are presumed marital property." "Unless they're held in separate legal entities with clear corporate structures," Hayes said smoothly. "Turner Restoration LLC has maintained separate books, separate accounts, and separate operations throughout its existence. Mr. Turner drew a salary from the business, which went into joint accounts, but the business itself was never a joint asset." Judge Morrison looked skeptical. Counsel, we're going to need a full accounting before I make any determinations about the business. For now, I'm ordering temporary spousal support of $2,000 per month pending final resolution. Mr. Turner will continue paying the mortgage on the marital home until we determine final property distribution. Mrs. Turner gets exclusive use of the home. Mr. Turner, you're to remove your personal belongings within 7 days. Your Honor, Hayes said, there's one more matter. We've discovered that Mrs. Turner has been conducting an extramarital affair. Virginia's a no-fault state, Mr. Hayes. Unless you're alleging fault-based grounds, the affair is irrelevant. We're alleging constructive desertion, Your Honor. Mrs. Turner has been planning to leave the marriage for months while continuing to benefit financially from it. She's been coordinating with the man she's having an affair with to maximize her take in the divorce. We have documentation. Rachel stood quickly. Your Honor, this is inflammatory, and I'll review the evidence, Judge Morrison said. Mr. Hayes, file your supporting documentation within 3 days. Ms. Simmons, you'll have 3 days to respond. Anything else? No, Your Honor. No, Your Honor. Good. Next hearing is in 60 days. Discovery deadline is 45 days from today. Don't make me regret giving you that much time. The gavel came down. Outside the courtroom, Amanda tried to approach me. Hayes stepped between us smoothly. All communication goes through me, Mrs. Turner. I just want to talk to my husband. Soon-to-be ex-husband, and no, you don't get to talk to him. If you have something to say, tell your attorney. She'll tell me. I'll tell him. That's how this works. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. Real ones, I thought. Maybe. Jake, please, this is insane. We can work this out. Mrs. Turner, step away from my client, or I'll file a protective order. Rachel put a hand on Amanda's shoulder and guided her away. I caught one last glimpse of her face, red, furious, desperate, before Hayes steered me toward the elevator. That went well, he said once we were alone. She's going to fight this. Of course she is. She thought she was going to take you for millions. Now she's getting $2,000 a month and nothing else until the final hearing. That's got to sting. What about the business valuation? She'll hire an expert. We'll hire an expert. They'll disagree by about 40%. The judge will split the difference and we'll go from there. He pressed the elevator button. The key is making sure our expert understands the nuances of your operation. Meaning? Meaning your business value depends heavily on your personal skill and reputation. Without you, it's worth maybe a quarter of what it is with you. That's not a transferable asset. That's personal goodwill, and personal goodwill isn't marital property. I'd already had this conversation with Frank and my accountant. The business was structured carefully. Equipment could be valued, sure. The building could be valued. But my expertise, my relationships with clients, my reputation in the classic car community, those weren't assets Amanda could claim. She was going to walk away with far less than she'd expected. The discovery process was brutal. Both sides requested every document imaginable: tax returns, bank statements, credit card bills, business records, employment history, health records, emails, text messages. I spent 2 weeks gathering everything, organizing it into binders, highlighting relevant sections. Amanda's financial affidavit arrived via email. Rachel had filed it with the court as part of discovery. Hayes and I reviewed it in his office over coffee. She's claiming monthly expenses of $9,000, he said, shaking his head. Mortgage is $2,000. What the hell is she spending $7,000 a month on? I looked at the breakdown. Car payment, $500. Insurance, $300. Utilities, $400. Food, $800. Clothing, $1,200. Entertainment, $600. Spa and salon, $900. Gym membership, $200. Miscellaneous, $2,000. She's inflating everything, I said. She doesn't spend $900 a month on spa treatments. Probably not, but she'll claim she needs that to maintain the lifestyle she's accustomed to. He made a note. We'll challenge it. Show what she actually spent during the marriage based on credit card records. I kept everything. Of course you did. My own affidavit was considerably different. Salary from the LLC, $120,000 per year. Monthly expenses, $3,000, including rent, utilities, food, insurance, and basic living costs. I didn't have a gym membership, didn't go to spas, didn't spend $1,200 a month on clothing. The business financials were more complicated. The LLC showed revenue of $800,000 per year. But after expenses, payroll, equipment, rent, insurance, supplies, the net profit was around $300,000. I drew $120,000 as salary. The rest stayed in the business for reinvestment. She's going to argue you're hiding income in the LLC, Hayes predicted. I'm not hiding anything. The business needs capital for equipment purchases, facility maintenance, inventory. I can't just drain it. I know that. You know that. We need to make sure the judge knows that. The forensic accountant we hired, a woman named Patricia Chen, who'd testified in dozens of high-profile divorces, spent 3 days reviewing my books. She compiled a report that valued the business at $1.9 million, accounting for equipment, facilities, inventory, and projected future earnings based on my continued involvement. She also noted carefully that without me, the business would be worth substantially less. Your personal reputation and skill are the primary drivers of value, she wrote in her report. The business's client base is largely personal to Mr. Turner. These relationships are not transferable assets. Amanda's expert, a guy named Robert Flynn who advertised on daytime TV, valued the business at $3.2 million. Hayes nearly laughed when he read Flynn's report. He's valuing the business as if it's a franchise that could be sold to anyone. That's not how restoration shops work. We'll destroy this in court. The affair evidence kept piling up. Diane had sent me months of screenshots, text messages, phone logs, even photos of Amanda and Kyle together at restaurants and hotels. I didn't look at the photos. Hayes did, cataloging them for potential use. She's going to argue the affair started after the marriage was already over, he predicted, that you'd emotionally abandoned her, so she sought comfort elsewhere. The texts show her planning to leave me before I even knew there was a problem. Exactly, which means she's been operating in bad faith. That's our leverage. Rachel Simmons tried to schedule a mediation. Hayes declined. Why? I asked. Isn't mediation supposed to speed things up? Mediation works when both sides are negotiating in good faith. She's not. She's still hoping to get a big payday. Better to let her sweat through discovery and realize how weak her position actually is. Week 5 of the divorce process, Amanda showed up at the shop again. This time, Kyle was with her. I was under the hood of the '55 Chevy when Danny came running from the office. Boss, you got a problem. I straightened up, wiping my hands. What kind of problem? The bad kind. Amanda and Kyle were standing in the parking lot. He was exactly what I'd expected. Mid-30s, good-looking in a generic sort of way, wearing expensive casual clothes that screamed, I have money, but don't really work for it. Later, I'd learned he was in pharmaceutical sales, made decent money, nothing spectacular. We need to talk, Amanda said. Call my attorney. I'm serious, Jake. This has gone on long enough. Kyle stepped forward. Look, man, I know this is weird. You should leave, I said, now. We just want to... Danny, call the police. Tell them we have trespassers who won't leave. Danny pulled out his phone. Kyle held up his hands. Okay, we're going. But Amanda didn't move. You're really going to do this? Destroy everything we built over one mistake? You've been cheating on me for months. You plan to divorce me and take me for everything I've worked for. That's not one mistake. That's a pattern of betrayal. I never stopped loving you, she said, and her voice cracked. You stopped loving me years ago. You stopped seeing me. All you cared about was this place. That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time you took me on a date? Spent an evening with me without thinking about work? Made me feel like I mattered more than these cars? I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but exhaustion. 2 months ago, I made reservations at that Italian place you like. Cost me $300 for the tasting menu. I got home early, dressed up, was ready to go. You said you were too tired, said you'd rather stay in. So I canceled the reservation and we ordered pizza. You ate 2 slices, then spent 3 hours on your phone texting your friends. I thought you were texting Bethany, but you were texting him, weren't you? She didn't answer. 3 months before that, I bought tickets to that musical you wanted to see. You said you had a work thing. I found out later you went to a hotel with Kyle. I kept my voice level. I tried, Amanda. For years, I tried. You just stopped caring. That's not fair. Get off my property, now, or I'm having you arrested for trespassing. Kyle grabbed her arm. Come on, babe. This isn't worth it. They left. I watched them drive away, then went back to work on the Chevy. My hands were shaking. The trial date was set for 3 months out. In the meantime, life settled into a strange new rhythm. I worked. I went to the apartment. I documented everything for Hayes. I avoided anywhere I might run into Amanda or her friends. The shop thrived. Word of mouth brought new clients. The waiting list grew to 20 months. I hired another technician, a young guy fresh out of automotive school who had natural talent and could follow instructions. Business was good. My personal life was non-existent, but that was fine. 6 weeks before trial, Hayes called me with an update. Rachel Simmons is pushing for a settlement conference. The judge ordered it. We have to show up and negotiate in good faith. What's she offering? Half the house equity, $300,000 from your retirement accounts, and $500,000 for her share of the business. That's $900,000. Roughly, yes? For 16 years of marriage where she worked part-time and contributed maybe 30% of our income? She's arguing she sacrificed career opportunities to support you. It's standard divorce rhetoric. It's bullshit. Yes, but we still have to negotiate. Come in low. Offer $200,000 total. Let them counter. The settlement conference was held in a windowless room at the courthouse. Judge Morrison wasn't present. It was just the attorneys and their clients, with a professional mediator named Gerald something or other. Amanda looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes. Weight loss that didn't look healthy. Hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wouldn't look at me. The mediator explained the process. Each side would make an opening offer. He'd shuttle between rooms, trying to find common ground. The goal was resolution without trial. Hayes and I started in conference room A. Amanda and Rachel went to conference room B. Your opening offer? Gerald asked. $200,000 paid over 4 years, Hayes said. Plus she keeps her car and personal belongings. Gerald's eyebrows rose. That's significantly less than what she's requesting. It's significantly more than what she'd get at trial. He left to relay the offer. When he came back 20 minutes later, he looked tired. She's rejected your offer. She's countering at $800,000, paid immediately. Countered at $250,000, Hayes said without hesitation. This went on for 3 hours. The numbers crept closer but never converged. By the end, we were at $400,000, and they were at $600,000. I think we're at an impasse, Gerald said finally, unless one side is willing to move significantly. I have a question, I said. Everyone looked at me. Does she know about the Shelby? Hayes's expression didn't change, but I saw the calculation behind his eyes. What about it? Gerald asked. Never mind, just thinking out loud. After the settlement conference collapsed, Rachel filed a motion to compel. She wanted additional financial discovery, specifically requesting information about any vehicles I'd sold in the past 5 years and the proceeds from those sales. Hayes called me immediately. They're fishing. Someone told them about the Shelby. Who? I don't know, but they know something. We need to decide how to handle this. I sat in my office at the shop, staring at the wall. We disclose it, I said. You sure? It's legal. The taxes are paid. If we try to hide it and they find it anyway, I look like I'm concealing assets. Better to be upfront and explain the structure. All right, I'll prepare the disclosure. The offshore account revelation hit Amanda like a freight train. According to Hayes, who heard it from Rachel, Amanda had screamed when she read the disclosure documents. $700,000 in a Cayman Islands account that she'd known nothing about. She's calling it fraud, Hayes reported. Says you deliberately hid marital assets. I didn't hide anything. The IRS knows about it. It's in my tax returns, which she had access to for years. She just never bothered to look. That's our argument. But she's going to fight hard on this. Rachel's already filed an emergency motion claiming you concealed assets in bad faith. The emergency hearing was scheduled for the following week. Judge Morrison did not look happy when we reconvened in her courtroom. Mr. Hayes, your client has an offshore account worth $700,000 that wasn't disclosed in initial discovery. Your Honor, with respect, it was disclosed. It's listed on Mr. Turner's tax returns for the past 3 years, which were provided to opposing counsel in the first document production. The account was legally established, all taxes have been paid, and there's been no attempt to hide it. Mrs. Turner's attorney claims she was unaware of this account. Mrs. Turner had full access to all tax returns filed during the marriage. She signed them. If she didn't read them, that's not concealment on Mr. Turner's part. Judge Morrison turned to Rachel. Ms. Simmons? Your Honor, Mrs. Turner trusted her husband to handle their finances. She had no reason to scrutinize tax returns line by line. Mr. Turner deliberately kept this account secret. He kept it private, Hayes interrupted. There's a difference. He's a business owner. He maintains multiple accounts and entities for legitimate business and investment purposes. The account in question holds proceeds from the legal sale of a restored vehicle to an international buyer. Everything was properly documented and taxed. Why the Cayman Islands? Judge Morrison asked. The buyer requested discretion for tax purposes on his end. Mr. Turner accommodated that request through a legal wealth management structure. It's not uncommon in high-value international transactions. The judge looked at me directly. Mr. Turner, were you attempting to hide this money from your wife? I stood. No, Your Honor. The account holds money I earned from my business. It's managed by a legitimate wealth management firm. I pay taxes on it every year. My wife had access to our tax returns. She signed them. If she'd asked me about the account, I would have told her about it. She never asked. Did you tell her about it voluntarily? No, Your Honor, just like I don't tell her about every business decision I make. The restoration shop is my business. I manage it. She wasn't involved in day-to-day operations. Judge Morrison studied me for a long moment. Then she looked at Hayes. I want a complete accounting of this offshore account. Every deposit, every withdrawal, every transaction. I want proof of the taxes paid, and I want an explanation from your forensic accountant about how this factors into the marital estate. You have 1 week. Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Simmons, if you want your own forensic review, you're welcome to hire someone, but this account was disclosed in tax returns. I'm not finding bad faith based on what I've seen so far. Your Honor? 1 week, counsel. Both of you. The gavel came down. Outside the courtroom, Amanda was waiting with Kyle. She looked murderous. $700,000, she hissed as we passed. You lying piece of... Hayes stepped between us. Mrs. Turner, you're dangerously close to harassment. Back off. He stole from me. He earned money through his business and managed it appropriately. That's not theft. I'm his wife. Soon-to-be ex-wife. And you're the one who cheated, planned to take him for everything, and publicly humiliated him. Save your righteous indignation for someone who buys it. We left her standing there, shaking with rage. In the car, Hayes turned to me. That went better than expected. She's going to escalate. Probably. But we're in a strong position. The account is legal. The taxes are paid. The judge doesn't seem inclined to penalize you for being smart with your money. What happens now? Now we prepare for trial, and we prepare for Amanda to get desperate. He was right about the desperation. 2 days later, someone broke into my apartment. Nothing was taken. They'd rifled through my desk, opened my file cabinets, searched my closet, looking for something. Evidence, maybe, or leverage. I called the police, filed a report, installed security cameras. 3 days after that, someone posted a review on my business page claiming I'd defrauded them on a restoration job. It was completely fabricated. I'd never worked with anyone by that name, and the details were wrong. But it was there, 1 star, visible to anyone searching for my business online. I had my attorney send a cease and desist letter. The review disappeared. Then the inspection request started. Fire marshal wanted to inspect the shop. OSHA wanted to review safety protocols. Health department wanted to check the bathroom facilities. All within the same week. All almost certainly prompted by anonymous complaints. She's trying to hurt your business, Hayes said when I told him. Classic divorce warfare. Make you stressed, distracted, worried about your livelihood. She thinks you'll settle for more just to make it stop. I'm not settling. Good. Document everything. Every inspection, every complaint, every piece of harassment. We'll use it at trial to show her character. Frank pulled me aside one afternoon while I was dealing with the OSHA inspector. Boss, I got something you need to hear. We went into my office. He closed the door. My cousin works at the dental office where Amanda's employed. You know, office manager position? Yeah? She got fired 3 weeks ago. I stared at him. What? They let her go. Too many personal phone calls, too much time on her phone, showing up late. My cousin said she's been a wreck since the divorce started. But here's the thing. She told the partners at the dental office that she was quitting to move in with her boyfriend. Made a whole speech about starting fresh, new chapter, all that. Then the divorce started going south, and she tried to take it back. They'd already hired her replacement. So she's unemployed. Has been for weeks. She's been lying about it in her financial disclosures. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Your cousin willing to testify to that? She's willing to sign an affidavit. Doesn't want to get dragged into court, but she'll put it in writing. Get it. Get it today. The affidavit arrived 24 hours later. Frank's cousin, her name was Jennifer Steele, had written out a detailed account of Amanda's employment termination, including the date, the reasons, and Amanda's statements about quitting to move in with Kyle. Hayes was delighted. This is perjury. She swore under oath that she's employed and earning $30,000 a year. She's been lying to the court. What do? We save it. Don't tip our hand yet. Let her keep digging the hole. Then at trial, we bury her with it. The trial was now 2 weeks away. Discovery had closed. Both sides had submitted their witness lists, exhibit lists, and trial briefs. Judge Morrison had scheduled 3 full days for testimony. I spent those 2 weeks preparing. Hayes drilled me on potential questions. We reviewed every document, every timeline, every piece of evidence. He wanted me calm, factual, unshakable on the stand. She's going to try to make you look like a cold, calculating bastard who cared more about money than his marriage, he warned. Don't take the bait. Stay calm. Answer the questions directly. Don't volunteer extra information. What about the offshore account? We explain it clearly. Legal sale, legal structure, taxes paid. You're a businessman who made smart financial decisions. That's not a crime. The weekend before trial, I drove out to the property I'd been eyeing. 20 acres outside town, nestled against the foothills with a creek running through it. The for sale sign was still up. I made an offer. Full asking price, cash, close in 30 days. The seller accepted immediately. Amanda would find out eventually. I didn't care. Monday morning arrived. I put on the one suit I owned, bought specifically for this trial, and drove to the courthouse. Hayes met me in the parking lot. You ready? As I'll ever be. Remember, calm, factual, direct. Don't let Rachel rattle you. We walked into the courtroom together. Amanda was already seated at the plaintiff's table with Rachel Simmons. She'd dressed conservatively again. Gray suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. The wronged wife, version 2. She still wouldn't look at me. Judge Morrison took the bench at 9 sharp. Counsel, we're here for final trial in the matter of Turner versus Turner. Ms. Simmons, this is your petition. You may call your first witness. Rachel stood. The plaintiff calls Amanda Turner. Amanda walked to the witness stand. The clerk swore her in. She sat down, hands folded in her lap, the picture of wounded dignity. Rachel led her through the basics. How long they'd been married, her job history, her contributions to the marriage, how I'd worked long hours and been emotionally unavailable. Mrs. Turner, can you describe your relationship with your husband over the past few years? It was difficult. Amanda's voice was soft, carefully modulated. Jake became obsessed with his business. He worked constantly. Weekends, evenings, holidays. I felt like I was living alone. Did you try to address this with him? Many times. He'd promised to do better, but nothing changed. The business always came first. When did you begin to feel the marriage was over? About a year ago. I realized we were roommates, not partners. He didn't see me anymore. Didn't care about my needs or feelings. And that's when you began your relationship with Kyle Henderson? Amanda hesitated. Hayes had warned me this was coming, getting ahead of the affair before we could weaponize it. Yes, I was lonely and hurt. Kyle paid attention to me, made me feel valued. It was wrong, and I regret it, but I was desperate for connection. Mrs. Turner, were you aware your husband had an offshore bank account containing $700,000? No, I had no idea. Jake handled all our finances. I trusted him. How did you feel when you discovered this account? Betrayed, devastated. All those years he claimed we couldn't afford things I wanted. Vacations, a nicer house, more security. And he had hundreds of thousands hidden away. Objection, Hayes said calmly. Assumes facts, not an evidence. The account wasn't hidden. It was reported on tax returns Mrs. Turner signed. Sustained. Rephrase, Ms. Simmons. Mrs. Turner, did you read your tax returns before signing them? I skimmed them. Jake said they were fine, so I trusted him. Rachel continued for another 30 minutes, painting a picture of a neglected wife, a workaholic husband, and a marriage that died from lack of attention. Then she turned Amanda over to Hayes for cross-examination. Hayes stood slowly, buttoning his jacket. He smiled at Amanda. She didn't smile back. Mrs. Turner, you testified that you worked throughout the marriage. Is that correct? Yes. And what was your position? Office manager at Riverside Dental. Are you still employed there? Amanda's face went pale. Yes. You're currently employed at Riverside Dental? Yes. Hayes walked to the evidence table and picked up a document. Your Honor, I'd like to introduce Defendant's Exhibit 12. It's an affidavit from Jennifer Steele, an employee at Riverside Dental. He handed copies to the judge and Rachel. Rachel's face went white as she read. Mrs. Turner, according to this affidavit, you were terminated from Riverside Dental on March 15th, 3 weeks before you filed your initial financial disclosure claiming you were employed there. Is that true? Amanda looked at Rachel desperately. Rachel wouldn't meet her eyes. They said it was a leave of absence. A leave of absence where they hired your replacement and told you not to come back? They said I could reapply later. Mrs. Turner, did you or did you not tell your employers that you were quitting to move in with your boyfriend? Silence. Mrs. Turner, I was emotional. I didn't mean... So you lied in your financial disclosure. You claimed under oath that you were employed and earning $30,000 per year, but in reality, you'd been fired and had no income, correct? I was going to find another job. That's not what I asked. Did you lie in your sworn financial disclosure? Her hands were shaking. I made a mistake. A mistake or perjury? Objection! Rachel was on her feet. Argumentative. Sustained. Move on, Mr. Hayes. But the damage was done. Hayes had demolished Amanda's credibility in 5 minutes. He continued methodically. Asked her about the text messages with Kyle where she discussed taking me for everything. Asked her about the timeline of the affair, 6 months before our separation, not after, as she'd implied. Asked her about expenses she'd claimed were necessities, the $900 per month in spa treatments, the $1,200 in clothing. Mrs. Turner, you're asking this court to award you nearly $1 million based on your claimed lifestyle needs. But isn't it true that many of these expenses are luxuries, not necessities? I'm accustomed to a certain standard of living. A standard of living funded entirely by your husband's work while you spent money and planned to leave him? That's not fair. Isn't it true that you began planning this divorce specifically after learning how much your husband's business was worth? No. Isn't it true that you told your friends? And I quote, Preston says the business could be worth $2 to $3 million. I'll clean him out, then Kyle and I can finally be together? Amanda's face crumbled. Actual tears now, streaming down her face. I was angry. Jake had hurt me. By working hard to provide for you? By ignoring me. Mrs. Turner, in the past 3 years, how many times did your husband attempt to take you on dates or vacations? She didn't answer. Let me help you. According to credit card records, he made reservations at restaurants at least twice per month, booked weekend trips 4 times per year, bought tickets to shows, concerts, events. How many of those did you attend? He was always working. How many, Mrs. Turner? I don't remember. According to his records, you canceled or refused approximately 70% of those plans, usually at the last minute, often because you had other commitments. Hayes paused. Commitments with Kyle Henderson? Not always. But sometimes? She wiped her eyes. Sometimes. Hayes let that hang in the air for a moment. Then he returned to his seat. No further questions. Rachel called Kyle Henderson next. Apparently she thought having him testify about the timeline of the affair would somehow help. It didn't. Hayes destroyed him on cross-examination, getting him to admit that Amanda had told him she was planning to divorce me months before I filed, that they'd discussed her potential settlement, that he'd encouraged her to get everything she deserved. By lunchtime, Amanda's case was in shambles. After the break, Rachel called her expert witness, Robert Flynn, the forensic accountant who'd valued my business at $3.2 million. Hayes had prepared me for this. Flynn was going to argue that the business was worth more than our expert claimed, therefore Amanda deserved a bigger share. Flynn testified for an hour about his methodology, his experience, his credentials. Then Hayes stood for cross. Mr. Flynn, your valuation assumes the business could be sold as a going concern, correct? Yes. And you've based that on comparable sales of similar businesses? Correct. How many classic car restoration businesses were included in your comparable sales analysis? Flynn hesitated. The comparables were drawn from automotive service businesses generally. So oil change places, tire shops, dealerships? The methodology is sound across automotive sectors. Mr. Flynn, isn't it true that classic car restoration is a highly specialized field that depends almost entirely on the individual restorer's skill and reputation? Skills can be transferred. Can they? If Mr. Turner sold his business tomorrow, would the new owner have his 20 years of experience, his relationships with collectors, his reputation in the classic car community? They'd have the client list. Which clients hired Mr. Turner specifically because of his personal reputation? Those clients don't come with the business, they come because of him? Hayes picked up our expert's report. Our expert, Patricia Chen, accounted for this in her valuation. She separated the business's tangible assets from Mr. Turner's personal goodwill. You didn't. Why not? The methodologies differ because your methodology is designed to inflate the value to benefit your client. Isn't that right? Objection, Rachel called. Sustained. Jury will disregard. But there was no jury, just Judge Morrison, who was taking notes and looking increasingly skeptical of Flynn's testimony. Hayes spent another 30 minutes picking apart Flynn's valuation, pointing out flawed assumptions, questionable comparables, and convenient omissions. By the time Flynn left the stand, his credibility was shredded. Rachel rested her case. Judge Morrison looked at Hayes. Defense ready to proceed? Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls David Turner. I walked to the stand. The clerk swore me in. I sat down and looked at Hayes, who nodded slightly. We'd rehearsed this. Stay calm. Tell the truth. Don't embellish. Hayes led me through my background. How I'd started in my father's garage. Built the business from nothing. Worked 100-hour weeks in the early years. Mr. Turner, your wife testified that you were emotionally unavailable during your marriage. How do you respond to that? I don't think that's accurate. I worked hard, yes, but I tried to make time for us. I planned dates, booked trips, tried to include her in my life. I pulled out my phone. I kept a shared calendar with Amanda. Every event I planned is documented there. Restaurants, shows, weekend trips. Most of them were canceled because she wasn't interested or had other plans. Other plans with Mr. Henderson? I didn't know that at the time. I thought she was busy with her friends. When did you learn about the affair? The night of the car show. Her friend Diane sent me screenshots of text messages between Amanda and Kyle. How did that make you feel? Betrayed, angry, but also honestly relieved. It explained a lot. Why she'd been so distant, why nothing I did was ever good enough. Hayes walked me through the offshore account. I explained the Shelby sale, the buyer's request for discretion, the legal structure of the account, showed tax returns proving I'd reported everything. Why didn't you tell your wife about this account? She never asked. The money was from my business, a deal I'd negotiated and completed. I managed our household finances, but this was business capital. I didn't see a need to discuss every business decision with her. If she'd asked, would you have told her? Of course. Rachel's cross-examination was aggressive. She tried to paint me as controlling, secretive, obsessed with money. I stayed calm, answered every question directly, didn't take the bait. Mr. Turner, you claim you tried to save your marriage, but isn't it true you filed for divorce within days of discovering the affair? I filed after my wife publicly humiliated me, called me beneath her standards, and I learned she'd been planning to divorce me for months while continuing to spend my money. You don't think that's vindictive? I think it's practical. She'd already checked out of the marriage. She was just waiting for the right moment to leave. I saved her the trouble. And you made sure to protect your assets first. I made sure to protect what I'd built, yes. Amanda had made it clear she didn't value my work or my contributions. I wasn't going to let her take it all just because she got bored. Rachel tried for another 20 minutes, but couldn't shake me. I'd told the truth, and the truth was on my side. Hayes called Patricia Chen next, our forensic accountant. She walked the judge through her valuation methodology, explaining why personal goodwill couldn't be considered a marital asset. She was clear, credible, and thorough. Rachel barely cross-examined her. Finally, Hayes called Frank Brenner, my senior technician, who testified about my work ethic, my dedication to the business, and the personal relationships I'd built with clients over 20 years. If someone else bought the business tomorrow, Hayes asked, would those clients stay? Hell no, Frank said. They hire Jake because he's the best. Take Jake out of the equation, you've got a building full of tools, that's it. Rachel tried to undermine him on cross, but couldn't. Frank had been in the industry for 30 years. He knew what he was talking about. Hayes rested the defense. Closing arguments were brief. Rachel argued that Amanda deserved compensation for supporting me during the marriage, despite overwhelming evidence that she'd done the opposite. Hayes argued that Amanda had been planning to leave anyway, had committed perjury in her financial disclosures, and had no legitimate claim to assets she'd never valued until she knew their worth. Judge Morrison took notes throughout. When both sides finished, she looked up. I'll take this under advisement. You'll have my ruling within 30 days. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. 23 days later, Judge Morrison's ruling arrived via email. I was at the shop, working on the 71 Challenger, when my phone buzzed. Hayes had forwarded the decision with a single word, read. I sat down in my office and opened the PDF. The ruling was 18 pages long. I skipped to the end first, like ripping off a bandage. Ordered and adjudged. 1. The marriage between David Turner and Amanda Turner is dissolved. 2. The marital home shall be sold. Proceeds shall be divided 60-40, with 60% to Mr. Turner and 40% to Mrs. Turner, accounting for Mr. Turner's disproportionate financial contributions to the property. 3. Mrs. Turner shall receive $175,000 from Mr. Turner's retirement accounts. 4. Turner Restoration, LLC is determined to be Mr. Turner's separate property. Mrs. Turner has no claim to the business or its assets. 5. The offshore account containing $700,000 is determined to be Mr. Turner's separate property, acquired through his business operations. 6. Spousal support is denied. Mrs. Turner is capable of employment and demonstrated dishonesty in her financial disclosures. 7. Each party shall pay their own attorney's fees. I read it 3 times to make sure I understood. She was getting roughly $350,000 total, less than half of what she'd demanded. No business, no ongoing support, nothing. I called Hayes. "You saw?" he asked. "I saw." Morrison destroyed her in the findings. "Did you read the full opinion?" I scrolled back up and read the judge's reasoning. She'd found Amanda's testimony not credible in multiple places, noted the perjury in her financial disclosures, observed that Amanda had demonstrated a pattern of deception and bad faith throughout the proceedings. The section about the business was particularly satisfying. The court finds that Turner Restoration LLC's value is almost entirely attributable to Mr. Turner's personal skill, reputation, and relationships within the classic car restoration community. These attributes constitute personal goodwill that is not a marital asset subject to distribution. While the business has tangible assets, its ongoing value depends on Mr. Turner's continued involvement. Mrs. Turner has no experience in this field and made no contributions to the business's success beyond general spousal support. She is not entitled to a share of the business. "She's going to appeal," Hayes predicted. "Let her. She can't afford it." Probably not, and she won't win. Morrison's ruling is sound. What happens now? Now you sell the house, pay her out of your retirement accounts, and move on with your life. I sat back in my chair, looking around my office. The photos on the wall, the restoration projects in the bays, the business I'd built, all still mine. That evening, I drove out to the 20 acres I'd bought. The property was officially mine now. The closing had happened 2 weeks earlier, right before trial. I'd kept it quiet, knowing Amanda would find some way to make it part of the divorce if she knew. The foundation for my new house was already poured. A simple 3-bedroom with a detached workshop. Nothing fancy, but mine. I stood there as the sun set behind the mountains, watching the creek run clear and cold through my property, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I hope you're happy. You destroyed my life." I didn't respond, just blocked the number and put my phone away. 3 days later, the house sold. I'd listed it immediately after the ruling, priced it to move fast. A young couple bought it, first-time homeowners, excited and nervous. I was happy for them. Amanda and I met one final time at the title company to sign the papers. She looked terrible, thin, pale, dark circles under her eyes. Kyle wasn't with her. "Heard you and Kyle broke up," I said while we waited for the notary. She didn't look at me. "He said this was too much drama." Shocking. "You really hate me, don't you?" I thought about that. "No, I don't hate you. I just don't care about you anymore." She flinched like I'd hit her. The notary called us over. We signed the papers. The house sold for $620,000. After the mortgage payoff and fees, there was $480,000 left. I got $288,000. Amanda got $192,000. Combined with the retirement account distribution, she walked away with $367,000 for 16 years of marriage. She took the check and left without saying goodbye. I transferred my share to the private account, added it to the offshore funds, and called my financial advisor. With just over $1 million in investable assets, plus the business generating $300,000 in annual profit, I was in excellent shape. Better than I'd ever been, actually. The house construction took 4 months. I worked on it myself whenever I had time, alongside the contractor. Framed walls, installed electrical, laid tile. There was something therapeutic about building my own space from scratch. Frank and the guys from the shop helped with the workshop. We got the lift installed, the tool storage configured, the air compressor hooked up. It was perfect. A space designed exactly for my needs, with no compromises. I moved in on a Saturday in late fall. The leaves were changing, the air was crisp, and the view from my porch was everything I'd imagined. That night, I sat outside with a beer and my phone, scrolled through social media out of boredom, found Amanda's profile. It was public. She'd never locked it down. The recent posts were all about fresh starts and finding yourself and toxic people. Inspirational quote graphics. The usual divorced person social media cliches. Then I saw the post from 2 days ago, a photo of her standing in front of a small apartment building. The caption read, "New beginnings in my cozy studio. It's small, but it's mine. Starting over is scary but necessary. Divorced, win our fresh start, your single life." Studio apartment. She'd gone from a 4-bedroom house to a studio. I felt absolutely nothing. I kept scrolling, found Kyle's profile. He'd moved on too, photos with a new girlfriend, someone younger and blonder than Amanda. They looked happy. Good for them. My profile was sparse. Just photos of cars, mostly. The last personal photo was from 3 years ago. Amanda and me at some restaurant, both of us smiling but not really looking at each other. I deleted it, Posted a new photo instead. My porch view, mountains in the background, creek in the foreground. Caption, home. Within an hour, I had 30 likes and a dozen comments from clients, friends, and car community people congratulating me on the new place. Genuine, happy comments from people who actually gave a damn. That's when I realized something. Amanda had been wrong at the car show that day. This marriage hadn't survived another year. She'd been right about that. But I wasn't beneath her standards. She'd been beneath mine. I'd just been too busy working to notice. Business kept growing. The waitlist hit 24 months. I hired 2 more technicians, started specializing in pre-1970 American muscle cars, which commanded premium prices. A '69 Boss 429 Mustang came through that sold for $400,000 after restoration. My cut was $160,000. The money piled up faster than I could spend it. I dated occasionally, nothing serious. A woman who owned a bakery downtown, a nurse I met at a car show, a veterinarian who liked hiking, they were all nice. None of them stuck. That was fine. I wasn't looking for a replacement, Amanda. I was looking for someone who valued what I'd built, who understood that my work wasn't a hobby or an escape. It was who I was. I hadn't found her yet. But I wasn't in a hurry. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, Diane called me, Amanda's friend who'd sent me the screenshots. "I thought you should know," she said. "Amanda's filing for bankruptcy. The money's gone." "All of it?" She bought a new car, took a trip to Europe, helped Kyle pay off some debts before he dumped her, made some bad investment decisions. Now she can't make rent? That's unfortunate. Is it, though? You seem like you're doing pretty well. I am. Good. You deserved better than what she put you through. Diane paused. For what it's worth, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner about the affair. I should have. Why did you finally tell me? Because when you called her bluff at the car show, you reminded me that some things matter more than social circles. You were honest. She wasn't. And honestly deserves support, even when it's uncomfortable. We talked for a few more minutes, then hung up. I sat on my porch that evening, watching the sunset, thinking about Amanda in her studio apartment, broke and alone. I should have felt satisfaction, vindication, some kind of victory. Instead, I just felt tired. She'd wanted the divorce because I was beneath her standards, because I worked with my hands, because my life wasn't glamorous enough. And where had that gotten her? I'd gotten the business, the property, the financial security, the peace of mind. She'd gotten a studio apartment and bankruptcy. The revenge wasn't in destroying her. It was in building something so good that her absence didn't matter. 2 years after the divorce, I sold a fully restored '67 Shelby GT500 Super Snake for $1.2 million. It was the highest sale in my career. The buyer was a collector in Singapore who'd heard about my work through industry channels. The day the wire transfer hit my account, I drove out to my property and stood by the creek. Same spot as always, looking at the mountains. 16 years of marriage. 2 years of freedom. The freedom had been better. My phone rang. Hayes, checking in like he did occasionally. How are things, David? Good. Really good. Glad to hear it. You earned it. Thanks for everything, by the way. You saved my ass. You saved your own ass. I just helped document it. He paused. You know Amanda tried to sue me, right? What? 6 months ago. Claimed I'd conspired with you to defraud her. Case was dismissed with prejudice. She had to pay my attorney's fees. I laughed. Couldn't help it. She can't let it go, Hayes said. Some people can't. They keep fighting battles they've already lost, hoping reality will change. That's sad. That's human nature. The smart ones accept reality and move on. You did that, she didn't. We hung up. I walked back to my house, my workshop, my life. Tomorrow I'd start on a '70 Plymouth Hemi Cuda, rare car, high-value restoration. The owner was paying $250,000 for the work. But tonight, I was just going to sit on my porch, drink a beer, watch the stars come out, and appreciate the fact that I'd built something worth keeping. Amanda had said our marriage wouldn't survive another year, that I was beneath her standards. She'd been right about the first part, dead wrong about the second. And that, watching the life I'd built flourish without her, watching her crumble under the weight of her own choices, that was the real revenge. I didn't have to destroy her. She'd destroyed herself. I just refused to go down with her.